back to the Late Night Review, and tonight I want to review Samson and Delilah with Victor Mature and Hedy Lamarr. I grew up watching this movie on AMC, American Movie Classics. They used to rerun it over and over and over again. I recorded it, watched it over and over again. This is a classic directed by Cecil B. DeMille and actually Angela Lansbury. This is one of her first roles too. She plays a role in here, and it's one of her very first movies. I don't know, it might be her first, or at least one of her first movies. And of course, she went on to do Murder, She Wrote later, a very, very successful television show. Victor Mature, Hedy Lamarr, like I said, Cecil B. DeMille directed this. Very great director. He directed The Ten Commandments and other films as well. And it's got that iconic style of his in here. The art direction is great. It's colorful, and it tells the biblical story of Samson and Delilah. And I like this movie a lot. And as a believer, a Christian myself, I can really, really relate because, you know, I've read that story quite a few times. And I think it's a pretty accurate portrayal. There's a couple things that may be a little off, but it's the best Samson movie I've ever seen. Actually, this is the best portrayal, I think, of the biblical character of Samson that I've ever seen. I think Victor Mature does a great job. In fact, Steve Reeves was offered this role, but he was making more money. He had more money offered to him to do Hercules overseas, so he chose to do Hercules. And not only that, but I think they asked him to drop a whole bunch of muscle. They wanted him to be leaner in this role, but at the time he wanted to stay rather thick and big. Later on, like in The Giant of Marathon, he did drop weight. Later on in life, he did have less muscle mass. And I think his goals shifted from being, you know, kind of big and muscular to doing things, you know, exercising in a way that just where he wanted to be fit basically later. And that was his main goal later on in life. I've seen with interviews with him where he talked about that. The exercises he did later were just to improve his fitness and help him do normal things in life. But at the time, he didn't want to drop the weight and do the role, so he did Hercules overseas. I love the Hercules movies he did. Samson and Delilah, I love this movie. It's better made, it's better done, better acted than the Hercules movies that Steve Reeves did. But I got a ton of nostalgia for those Hercules movies, and I love those movies. They're still some of my favorites. This is a better film, Samson and Delilah. It's got drama, action, if you know anything about the story. Samson slays the Philistines, who are doing a lot of bad stuff, and they attack him and his bride. They actually kill his bride at the beginning, and he goes on a rampage and seeks justice and vengeance and takes a lot of them out. Some fun action scenes, and it's really well done, especially for back then. They showed quite a bit, and the action scenes were good. Certain messages in this movie are good, and it's a well done movie. It's got a good message in it about strength and faith, and don't abandon your faith, and try to do what you should do, and don't break your promise. Something that Samson learns the hard way later, unfortunately. But I just can't say enough how much of a classic this movie really is. I mean, it's very, very well done. I think Victor Mature plays Samson perfect. And Hercules with Steve Reeves was awesome. I love the first Hercules movies Steve Reeves made, and Hercules Unchained. But Samson and Delilah is just so much better done. Better camera, better directing, better screenplay, acting, everything. The fight scenes, the battle scenes in here with Samson and the Philistines are much better than any of the fight scenes or battle scenes in any of the Hercules movies with Steve Reeves. I love the Hercules movies. I got a ton of nostalgia for them, but this is the better film. It's very entertaining as well. A lot of nostalgia for this as well. And you might be surprised of how good and exciting the action scenes are in here. It's a very, very dramatic movie. It's got drama. If you know the story of Samson and Delilah, you'll understand the drama. If you've read it before, you'll know what this is about. Obviously, they use a little artistic license, but I think they get most of it right. And I think they could have gotten everything down to the detail, but that's the way it is sometimes. Directors, they use artistic license, but I think it's just Cecil B. DeMille is great at making these biblical movies, the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner. And I think his short scene with Clint Walker is in there. I think he plays one of the Egyptians. And by the way, I think Clint Walker, I think I've said this in my Superman review video, Clint Walker would have Christopher Reeve is an awesome Superman. He was the best Superman, I think, the best person to ever put on the Superman tights. But I always thought Clint Walker, given the opportunity, would have made a great Superman. And Victor Mature may be a really good Shazam. But yeah, those two guys, two of my favorite actors of all time. Cecil B. DeMille is just a great director. This movie is exciting. It's fun. It's fun to actually read along. Like if you read the biblical story in the Bible of Samson and Delilah while watching the movie, that's actually, I've done that before too. That's fun as well. It's been a long time since I sat down and did that, but it was fun. And this movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. If you haven't seen it and you like these kinds of movies, I think you're really in for a treat. Even if maybe you don't like these types of movies, you might be surprised how good this actually is. It's well acted. I mean, the acting in here is very good. There's drama, there's suspense, there's a lot of sad scenes, but hopeful scenes of hope and faith and courage. Action, if you like action. This movie's old, yes, but it's not slow. It's not a slow movie at all. You might be surprised at the fact that it's pretty fast paced for the time it was made. There's a lot of old movies. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of old movies that have a fast pace, like the Vikings with Kirk Douglas. That had a fast pace. The Champion with Kirk Douglas. There's many other movies. Gunfight at the OK Corral had a pretty good pace, but the Vikings even more of a fast pace. This Hercules movies, I think, had a pretty good pace. This Samson and Delilah movie has a good pace. It's not slow at all. So I don't think you'll be bored with it unless you just don't like these types of movies, but give it a shot. If you do like these kinds of movies, even if you're not into biblical movies, but you enjoyed Hercules or you enjoy movies about heroes or ancient warriors, I think you'll like this because the fight scenes in here, the battle scenes in here, give them a chance. I think they're pretty good. For the day that they were made, they were spectacular. It even holds up nowadays. I think the fight scenes are pretty good. I like them a lot, actually, and the music makes it exciting. It's a love story and plenty of action. So if you like movies like this, you're in for a treat. And even if you don't, I think it's worth definitely watching, buying, or however you can get it, watch it. I highly recommend this movie. And the production value of this film is just off the charts. I think what can you expect from Cecil B. DeMille? I mean, the colors in here, the sets that were built, the costume design, the art direction, the pillars, the columns, the temple of the Philistines, and when Samson pushes down the pillars and the temple collapses and takes out the Philistines, you have that big statue of Dagon collapsing. Everything is so well done. I think Dagon actually had, in real life, through archaeological discoveries, they found Dagon statues, I believe, and it's believed that he looked more like a fish. He had fish characteristics and human and fish characteristics, if memory serves me right. And there's so many things they found in terms of biblical things in archaeology. They found Goliath's name on a piece of pottery in his hometown of Gath. Goliath. And there's so much, that whole world of biblical archaeology is very interesting, and the manuscripts, and I've done my own study on that kind of thing. Whether you believe in Jesus or not, and whether you believe in miracles or not, it's very interesting that his enemies, I mean, going way back, when you look at ancient manuscripts from the beginning, obviously the Pharisees, they did not like Jesus. The enemies of Christianity, going back to the times of the events themselves, you had Christianity, and then you had the Roman Empire in the first century against them. In the time of Jesus, in the time of the disciples, you had the Pharisees, the Sanhedrin against them. When you look back at all the ancient writings, and even the writings of Jesus's enemies, isn't that something? They said the miracles that he performed were not done from God, they were done from sorcery and witchcraft. They acknowledge that he did miracles, so that's fascinating. Even if you're not a believer like I am, it's very interesting, and all that kind of stuff. Those types of studies are very fascinating. This movie is just awesome. I think it's one of the best ever made, and I've seen a lot of biblical movies, and this is one of my very favorites. And if you like action, if you don't like, just to sit through a movie that has good dialogue but there's no action, this has both. It has action, good dialogue, fast pace, and it's not boring. So I definitely recommend this one. It's fun. It's a fun ride. There's just so many good scenes in this movie. One of my favorites is when he is enchained. The Philistines, he willfully surrendered. That way the Philistines won't persecute his people. So he willfully surrenders, and then later on, it's a really good scene where he prays for strength to God, and then he gets stronger and stronger, and then a storm starts to develop. There's thunder and there's lightning, and then he breaks the chains. It's really an awesome scene. He breaks the ropes and the chains, and he goes after the Philistines, and I think he kills 1,000 of them. It's really an interesting scene. There's lightning, the way the art direction is, and the special effects. I mean, for that day, they did a great job. I mean, I think it even holds up today when you look at some of the scenes in there. It's really an exciting scene. He's throwing the Philistines around. He gets a jawbone, and the way when he hits them on top of the head, on top of the helmets, it looks pretty realistic. I think he actually did hit those guys, but they had helmets on that protected them. I think when they filmed, it looks real, and you can hear it. And this fight scenes in here are surprisingly good for the time that it was filmed. If you haven't seen this classic and you like these types of movies, I think you're in for a real treat. Check this out. I highly recommend Samson and Delilah. This has been the Late Night Review. Good night, everybody. Like and subscribe and share this video. And until next time, take care.